We're going to call the Hermiston City Council meeting for January 25th, 2017 in the Urban Renewal Agency to order with a declaration of quorum. We are missing Ms. Myers, and she's absent, and Lori is sick. So, missing both of them this evening. Any changes that we need to make, Smith?
Yes, that works well. I'd like to ask the council to delay the consideration of resolution number 2172 on the City of DePaul construction contract. There was a little bit of miscommunication between myself and the architect. We needed a certain number of days between sending some paperwork out to all the bidders before we could ask the City Council to approve the contract. They weren't aware, because they don't always do a lot of work in Oregon, so we didn't get that synced up like we should have. So asked to bring that back at our February 8th meeting.
Okay, so we're going to pull that one from the agenda.
Yes.
Can you, at that time, maybe give us a brief update of the status of that and kind of tell us?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Nothing else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, just a reminder that this is a public meeting and that it is being live streamed. And so if you're going to speak, make sure you turn your microphone on, speak directly into the microphone so that they can understand you on the YouTube channel. And if you're attending via YouTube, welcome. We appreciate it. We do only take public comment in person though. So if you would like to make a public comment, you do have to show up for a meeting. Please join me in the flag salute.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd also like to thank Councilor Harden for filling in for me last month. It was our first meeting of the year, and so I didn't get the opportunity to welcome our new councilors. Welcome, Councilor Peterson, Councilor Fleischer-Kuhn, and Councilor Duran. We also have new seats, so hopefully you like your new seating arrangement. If not, too bad. So anyway, look forward to working with you, and welcome to the City Council. We appreciate your volunteerism and willingness to participate in personal time to make the community a better place to live in and be successful and raise a family and all the great things that we try to do as a city. So we are at the first opportunity for citizen input on non-agenda items. So if there is an item that you would like to speak to that's not on our current agenda, I would encourage you to come up to the microphone up front, introduce yourself by name and address, direct your comments to me, and try and limit them to no more than 5 minutes. Welcome.
Jackie Linton, Hermiston. Wyatt, what I would like to bring up is about the 8 acres that we talked about last summer. I would like for the council to consider portioning off a portion of that for the homeless shelters. I think that would be a good area to put I think they have something like 24 housing, small houses, I'm not sure. But I think that would be a good area to section off and still be away from parks and schools, but yet close enough for them to get in town. So they will be trying to help people to get back into society and be an asset to the community. And also, along with that, I know there was discussion of giving the acres away. I feel that because the city spent tax dollars way back when they first bought it, that it should not be given away to any developers, that they should at least pay what the city paid when they bought that land. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And just for clarification, you're talking about the green property, right, out by wastewater treatment?
Yes,
That we're
yes,
talking
sir.
about developing? Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. We're going to move on to the consent agenda item, and I understand, are there any of those that we need to pull?
Mr. Mayor, can we pull item B?
Okay, sure. You don't want to let the
Just
new
let him-
guy-
just let him-
You didn't want to let the new guy do it?
Well,
All right. We're going to pull item B. Any others that we need to pull this evening? No? Okay. Any public comment on items A, C, D, or E? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda items minus B?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda items minus B.
Okay. Then moved by Councilor Spicer Coon, seconded by Councilor Harden, that we approve the consent agenda items as listed, A, C, D, and E. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously. So, Maria, I had a hard time hearing you. Okay, so make
Yes.
sure you speak in the microphone, good. And Nancy had a hard time hearing you too. So, just so they can hear you on the video. All right, so we pulled B. Councilor Primer, why did we pull B?
I would give the opportunity for it to be, for Mr. Spicer to
Ask his question? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Luisi, I would just notice that the notice of special election, I'm the only candidate listed there. I would assume there's a conflict of interest with me approving that.
So we're approving a public notice, but the reason we're public noticing it, is it a conflict for him to vote on the public notice approval?
Yes.
Yes, okay, there you go, there's your answer, good question. All right. Showing you're savvy as a counselor already. Okay, so we have consent agenda item B, which is public notice of special election on March 9th, 2020 of Ward 4 counselor position. The candidate listing, which is current counselor, Philip Spicer. Any public comment on it?
First, I'll recuse myself, I guess, while we do this consideration. Step behind the curtain.
Do we need to do that, Gary? Does he have to step away from the council that dies?
I'm sorry, would you repeat your question?
So does he need to recuse and remove himself from the council dais as a part of the process, or he just doesn't, he just abstains?
Well, as an after conflict, he's supposed to.
Okay, all right, there you go. Good job. Okay, back.
Yes, sir. But it's not to complain, it's just basically to ask a question. Well, my last statement wasn't complaining either, but anyway. Since there's only one person that is running for that position, I would like to know if there's anything in the ordinances that say that we don't have to spend the money to have him elected, and if not, maybe that is something that the council can consider for future references, that if only one person is running for a position, that it doesn't, if it's legal, of course, I don't know if anybody do anything illegal, they don't have to, you know, do the voting for it. Thank you.
Do we have
So-
bylaws?
That,
Do we have any bylaws or
Yeah.
anything?
so it's a great question, Jackie. Asked a similar question, so brilliant minds think alike. Mr. Luisi, I think the concern was, if I understood it correctly, we have to allow public participation in the form of write-in. There have been some recent write-in elections where people have won, even though there was no or one candidate listed. So even though there's one candidate, we still have to run the campaign. Is that, or the ballot? Is that pretty accurate?
my understanding.
Okay. So is it possible that we could look at a bylaw change, or does that not even make sense?
I don't think it makes sense.
Okay, because then you wouldn't have an opportunity for
Somebody
write-in.
who wanted to counter-writing campaign would,
You have to speak into the microphone, Gary. Thank you. Especially when we're talking about legal stuff.
Yes, there might be someone who would be interested in running a write-in campaign. I can recall a mayor's election in which only the mayor was going to run, but then somebody mounted a very vigorous write-in campaign and almost won the election. No, it is possible.
Okay. Not here in Hermiston.
Yes, it wasn't.
It wasn't Hermiston. Okay. So, that answers the question. Thank you, Jackie, though, for posing the question. Any other questions? Okay. So you have before you the approval of the public notice of special election on March 9th, 2020 of Ward 4 councilor position. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Kremer and second by Councilor Harden because I could hear him better. For approval, a roll call.
Yes.
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 All right, motion passes 5-0 with one recused or abstaining. Come on back, Philip. All right, we're now on to ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 2318, annexing 4N 2815 tax lot 200, 14.8 acres of Newman, 1307 Southwest 3rd Street. Are there any persons present who wish to comment? Any person, first of all, any counselors that would like to declare a conflict of interest?
I have to declare a conflict of interest as I am related to the Newmans.
All right, that gives us 5 still.
Yes.
Okay. And so this question on here, so go ahead, Mr. Smith. Go ahead and explain what we're doing.
Okay, first I'd like to just let you know that Mr. Spencer is out sick, and that's why he's not here. Otherwise, he'd be here to explain this and probably do a much better job. But in August, you held a public hearing related to this annexation, and the council adopted the findings of fact supporting the annexation, but we asked that you hold off on the actual ordinance because the property owner also needed to file a plat that showed the proper property lines that would result with this annexation and have us, and get us the correct legal description to include in this ordinance. So they have done the steps that they were required to, so now we're asking that you take the final step in approval of this annexation.
Is there any public comment on this? So Gary, because we already went through that process, they couldn't add public comment for the record. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. But they can still comment about us passing this ordinance.
That is correct. I don't think after that, it wasn't continued to take additional testimony. It was continued for these purposes of having the correct legal description.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments on it? Seeing none, Mr. Luisi, will you, the Mayor, I request first reading of the ordinance be read by title only and calls for roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention. Mr. Luisi.
Yes, the first reading of ordinance number 2318 by only reading the title. An ordinance annexing certain real property abutting Southwest 3rd Street, describing said real property, withdrawing said real property from special districts, and designating zoning. Mr. Mayor?
The Mayor requests that the ordinance be put on for final adoption at this meeting and the second reading be by title only and calls for roll call.
Yes.
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 Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention. Mr. Luisi.
The second and final reading of ordinance number 2318 as follows. An ordinance annexing certain real property abutting Southwest 3rd Street, describing said real property, withdrawing said real property from special districts, and designating zoning. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Can I get a motion that ordinance number 2318 be adopted and become effective 30 days after adoption by the City Council?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Barone, seconded by Councilor Duran, that we approve the ordinance number 2318, that we adopt 2318 and become effective 30 days after adoption by the City Council. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 5-0 with one abstention. All right, so resolution number 2172, Mr. Smith, you pulled it this evening. Can you kind of give us an update of what that was all about anyway?
Yes, so the law related to public contracting requires that once we open the bids, that we take a look who's the apparent low bidder. We send out notice to all those who bid, and we have to give them 7 days to know that we are planning to award the bid to the low bidder, and they have those 7 days to protest or some other, if they disagree with it for some reason. So we have to follow that. We're going to send the notice out tomorrow morning to each of the bidders, and then we'll be well past our 7 days by the time we get to our next council meeting. So if I had been all the way on, we would have tried to schedule the opening 7 days before so we could know to be able to send that out, but we did not catch that, and they, again, aren't used to doing as many bids in Oregon, so.
So it sounds as though, reading the information that you provided for tonight's council meeting, that was a good process. We had lots of...
Yeah, we were very pleased. 5 general contractors bid it, had a spread of about $3 million between the high and the low. That's a little high from that kind of the size of the project, but we had 3 bidders that were kind of grouped together right around the engineer architect's estimate. So we felt like those are pretty good numbers. So the parent low bidder is Griffin Construction they're based out of Bend, or actually Prineville, and then they have a Dallas office as well. So we're already kind of getting things started as far as the paperwork. There's a lot of contractual things that need to be done, as well as bid bonds and or construction bonds, all those things that they need to provide paperwork to us. So we're trying to do what we can, but we need to follow this piece of the statute. So.
Gotcha. So the other question I had for you, though, when we go through the validation process of a bidder, is there a process by which we make sure that they qualify for everything that we need them to do, and they have the capabilities of performing these?
Yes.
I recognize most of these people on here, but they met all the right qualifications, and will be putting together a great product the city can be proud of.
Yes, that's part of it. That's another item that's required in the statute, kind of a checklist of making sure that they're capable of this project. So we will also complete that prior to the February 8th council meeting.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions from the council? Okay. We will see it again next council meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the December 2020 financial report. I'm guessing that's Mr. Kay. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make sure that's on.
It is.
I've never been accused of not being able to be heard. I was 4th of 4 children. If I wanted to have dinner, I'd have to speak up. So I learned that at an early age. Thank you for having me tonight. We have before us tonight, whoops, I'm fast on the fingers. Hey, I'm going to try to, somebody put a new battery in here. Because I can't stop on the slide I want. For crying out loud. Back up. Byron, am I just crazy? I don't know.
Can you do it manually?
Yeah, it went by it again. Come on. There we go. I'd like to have the council know that we have a new employee. Yes, sir. That's all I was hitting. Tasha Harrell is our new senior financial analyst, replacing Barb McMahon. She comes to us from a public accounting firm in Albany, where she was a senior accountant for that firm. She's a graduate of Oregon State. Some information I found out after she came on board last Tuesday. While she is not a native Hermistonian, Her family did move here when she was 10. She has graduated from Hermiston High School, and she went off to college. And the summer she graduated, she actually worked for the city as a camp counselor during the summer. She holds a CPA, a municipal auditor's license as well. That'll come in real handy going forward. She hit the ground running. It's my hope that if you ever in City Hall, wherever you see Lily, you will probably see Tasha, because she'll be close by in office space. So I'm very pleased to have her on board. She has jumped in with both feet. Come on, Mark. There we go. Monthly financial report for the Urban Renewal Agency. Tax payments represent roughly 100% of our projected revenues so far this year. Mr. Spencer and myself are very pleased with the bids for City Hall, because one of the attendant items in that bid was resurfacing the lot across the street from the old City Hall, and they came in under the engineer's projected cost to do that, so he's saving some money. So I'm very happy for the Urban Renewal Authority, because we're going to be able to get some things done to make downtown look even better than it does now. Dadgummit.
Mark, do you want me just to do it manually?
Yeah, if I'm sorry, this thing, either I got a heavy thumb or it's just,
Is this the right slide?
I'm hitting it right, I'm hitting
Is
the
that the
button.
one you want? You'll get it to it. Is that the one?
Okay. Let me look at my notes. I'm frustrated. I've not ever been able to handle the projection.
It should be the right one.
I'm sorry. So we're on fund resources. We ended the month of December roughly 200,000 over projection. Most of that is due to the fact that we got reimbursed by the state for our CARES expenditures that we submitted for reimbursement. It was $208,000 over our projection. We have some other minus, I don't want to say minus, not minute either, some other small areas where we did have some increases in revenue. It's a one-off deal. It is not a constant. So I still want you to be aware that I have no fear that we're going to collect our property taxes, because we're at basically, well, we'll see in a minute, almost collected all of it. But right now we stand about 6% above projections. And that's really basically because of the CARES Act monies that we've gotten back after expending. If I could go one more. Our expenses, I'm sorry to say, we're over budget for the month, 151 million, thousand roughly. We do focus our attention on continuing emphasis on mission critical. We will double our efforts in the remaining 6 months. We have had a significant revenue deficit from general fund revenues, Parks and Rec, the pool, and a couple of other areas that I hope, with the new legislation that I think is going to be introduced in Congress, state and local governments might be able to be given some relief on revenue issues, because we can't get our way out of this, just keep cutting our expenses. We need help on revenue we've lost. I think we have some things we can do going forward. Right now, I'm comfortable that we've had a $705,000 reduction in our expenses through the year this far, and I am hopeful that we can, as time goes on, maybe get to $1 million. That will help, but I'm concerned about our revenue flow in May and June. If we are not allowed to open the pool and have some revenue from parks operations, that is a totally subsidized operation, but they get between 30 and 40% of their revenue is generated. We don't have to subsidize the whole thing. So if we decide that we're in a position to do that, I'm hopeful that revenue will pick back up that we did not get last summer. Okay, moving right along. This is the expenditure analysis. You can see there are a number of departments that are doing really well as far as significant savings to date. They're light blue. One is the court. Molly Crossan is doing a great job as the manager over there. She's putting in a new system, as we heard over the weekend at the planning retreat, and the software and the process is not going to cost as much as we thought when we put the budget together. That will be very helpful. You can also see that we've had significant reduction in expenses in the pool operation, because even though we did open it up and shut it 2 weeks later, we did have saved money in that regard. Also in the recreation area, we're saving money because we don't have the programs going on, but we also don't have the revenue that was coming in. And then Chief Hermiston is, as always, doing a great job with the police department to find all the places he can to save money as well. So in general, I think the general fund departments are doing as good a job as they can. I believe our over expenditures in November was due to pent-up demand for some things we had to do. But going forward, I'm hopeful that we're able to kind of stay the course. And as always, I will highlight the ones that look like they're in pink, but that's really light orange. Those are not based on historical practice. Those are based on a straight line 1/12 of the year, because we have a continuing impact of our overhead cost allocation. We no longer have bodies in those departments. We have the allocation for water, sewer, streets that they pay into the general fund to cover those expenses. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
So, Mr. K, can you remind us what non-departmental expenses are and why that number is so high?
Non-departmental are those expenses that are accrued to the city in total, or general fund operations in total. A good example will be the liability insurance the city carries, any legal fees or contracts that have to be negotiated. And it's a little bit high because we have had a lot of stuff going on with both City Hall and the library. There are some unexpected expenditures that have occurred that I've not really looked into, and I'm talking from a legal standpoint or an engineering standpoint. A lot of engineering costs we incur are buried in the CIP with the streets and water and sewer, but we also have some other contracts available that need to be looked at that I don't know if we forecast that when we decided to build City Hall. There were a lot of environmental things that had to be done. That's part of it, but I have not done an extensive review of that. I will tell you, I made a mistake on $60,000 that should not have been in non-departmental. It should have been in CARES expenditure item that you all approved for us back in the fall. So that number is $60,000 too high. We've done a journal entry to fix that, because I saw this overage and I'm like, I gotta look at things that, one, I was responsible for it, two, that are things that are obvious that we need to fix. But there's a concerted effort to do a review of that. I'm not able to get it done before this presentation.
Okay. I'll look forward to that next time. Thank you.
Yes, sir, I will. Had my arrows pop up so that you could highlight what I was talking about. And the next one. This is the general fund. We're above the minimum reserve requirement right now by 3.5 million and 2.91 times the minimum reserve. I'm hopeful that my projection through the end of the year, again, I have not made any adjustments to what the revenue and expenses are. If I were to do that, I would probably cut my revenues, I don't know, to 80% and expenses by at least 10 to 15. I have no basis in fact other than I just wished I could to do that. So I made the conscious decision to leave them as they are, and we deal with them as they approach each month going into the end of the year. I'm going to do another analysis sometime towards the middle of February to see if I need to come back to the council with any dire warnings or concerns well before the end of the year. Right now, and I should tell you, one of the things we will do July 1, the beginning of the year, we will move 6 months of overhead allocations and some other things into the general fund the first day of that next fiscal year to help us through this process with the minimum reserve. It will total somewhere north of just over $1 million that we will move July 1. That's part of the reason we did the cost allocation study, so we could have a quantifiable number. And then It's common practice in Oregon for small jurisdictions that rely almost totally on property taxes to go ahead and move money July 1. Because whether you do it July 1 or June 30 at the end of the year, doesn't matter. It's where you start the year, where you end the year. And I'm going to take advantage of some of those things that we're allowed to do under GAAP and GASB. Okay, moving right along. 6 months of 21 are pretty good, despite some negative variances in HES. As we know, there's an issue with rates in HES. He's also got some things going on that he's spending money on. He's a little bit over, but I'm comfortable that that will work itself out by the end of the fiscal year. All other departments in street, utility, and the regional water fund are doing really well. Streets will suffer for a while because, as we heard over the weekend at the retreat, gasoline tax revenues are down over the year. They seem to be rebounding okay, but who knows what next month brings or the month after. It's all a crapshoot in my book. If we end up having another lockdown, it will hurt the street department, no question. Actually, it will impact all these funds because most of them deal with utility payments, the water and HES as well. So knock on wood, we don't have a big impact from that going forward. Moving right along.
Mr. Kay,
Yes, sir.
when does the new rate structure go into place? Is that March?
I'm sorry?
The new rate structure? HES?
For HES, it started in January.
It started January. Okay. Thank you.
And I will apologize to the council right here. I should have listed the library product, renovation that we're doing, and the new city hall as a capital project. Historically, we've done CIP as far as what the utility and the enterprise funds are doing. You will see next month I will add the library, which will be pretty much done. I hope by the time we get together in the 8th. I don't think I'll be able to have this report ready by then. But certainly by the second meeting in February, you will see progress markers for both City Hall and completion of the library renovation, so that we'll know what's going on there. Not a whole lot of activity on any of these projects other than some engineering that's happening. Lots of things to think about and be cognizant of as we get into the spring, which is when most of the construction starts. When we have good weather and we can either put down asphalt at a temperature that will work or pour concrete when it's not below freezing, stuff like that. But we're still in the planning engineering phase of these, not turning dirt yet to any really great extent. And I believe that's the extent of my report, Mr. Mayor.
I got another question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are Parks and Rec projects not considered capital projects? Is that why they're not listed in there?
I would say, and the one that comes to my mind is funded. That is funded by insurance settlement and donation. It's not required actual authority from the council other than to accept the donations to allocate funds for construction. If you would like those types of markers as well, I'll be glad to get with Mr. Feder and put something out there.
I just didn't know why we weren't tracking Parks and Rec projects, because those are pretty major projects that we're completing right now too, and I'd like to hear updates on the progress of those as well.
I'll see what I can do, sir.
Thank you.
Won't be a problem.
Any other questions of Mr. Kay?
We do. So, since Parks and Recs Department, they have not been able to do a whole lot of activities, what are other Parks and Recs departments doing around the state to come out of the hole? Because obviously, we can't have a lot of activities. So, what are we doing? What can we do to offset, the revenue that has been lost?
For the revenue that's lost for any programs the city has, be it utility payments or Parks and Rec fees for programs that they're not offering, we are allowed no relief from any particular CARES Act that has been put in place for individuals as well as businesses. But they were very clear in the last passage of assistance, no revenue replacement for cities and municipalities. The legislation that's proposed is specific to states and cities. I am hopeful that the $2 billion is being discussed, $2 billion being discussed does happen, because if I can replace even 50% of the revenue we've lost, and here again, EOTech is impacted as well. I will tell you anecdotally, I was out there in March of last year, and they have a big calendar on the wall showing all their events scheduled, that Al Davis, the manager out there, and I are looking at it, and we're thinking, we're gonna do better than break even this year. And then all of a sudden, we're locked down. And he lost pretty much everything that had been booked. And right now, it's gonna be a wasteland out there for activities, except for small birthday parties or quinceañeras. Nothing really going on. He is trying like crazy for whatever he can do to book things outdoors. He's got a lot of barrel roping events, calf roping. Barrel races and calf roping. There's nothing we can do to replace revenue. All we can do is impact the expense side of the equation, unless we get legislative relief from the Congress.
Mr. Ron, I want to make sure I understood your question correctly. Did you ask, are there other creative ideas that Park and Rec departments across the state are doing to generate revenue beyond our traditional Parks and Rec program? Or were you asking for revenue replacement from the state? Or
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
revenue replacement?
Because I do want to say, which I was going to say that later, but I guess this is a good time to say it. You know, I've been really impressed with what Parks and Recs department has done. I see it on their Facebook page, a lot of different activities that, you know, they're still under a lot of restrictions, so there's not a whole lot of things that they can do. So that's what I was looking, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if as a body we need to write a letter, do we communicate with the commissioners so that, someone from the state is, knows the situation that our departments are in. And I know they should know, but it's something that, we certainly don't want to forget about, because Hermiston is a little town, and I'm sure that there are other towns just like ours that are suffering as well.
So, it's a very valid and good point. We communicate with the state through our legislators and our governor on a regular basis. And we aren't the only city that has been affected, especially in the Parks and Rec or other tourist or visitor association venues. We've all been impacted. I think the state is well aware of that. I think what we can do is communicate, though, with our federal legislators and letting them know how important it is that local districts receive funding in this next package. Because the first package, most of it went through the state. And so, reaching out to Senator Merkley, Senator Wyden, and now Representative Benz, communicating how important it is that local districts have access to resources to help revenue replace. Mr. Smith, you had a comment on that?
Yeah, I would just kind of echo what you said, and also last week, we had another, we've been having, over the COVID time, we've been having an economic recovery Zoom call with all of Eastern Oregon, so all the way to Ontario, to our area and down south. And both of the representatives of our two senators were on that call this last time, talking about how they're both trying to work so that there is some local relief in those funding packages. So I appreciated that they were working towards that goal.
Well, it definitely doesn't hurt that the senators and the representatives hear from local councilors. I mean, I think that's your role as an advocate for your community, is to make sure that they understand. They get to talk to, City Manager Smith all the time, but they don't get to talk to you guys very often. So, any chance or opportunity you can to communicate with them, and we can put you in contact with their liaisons, whether that's Jessica or Kathleen. I'm not sure who Representative Benz is local rep is yet, but, you know, we can put you in contact with them so you can communicate that message. It's important.
Thank you, I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
I would echo, if things were bad with lockdowns, we weren't hurt as bad as many cities in Oregon that depend on tourist dollars. I mean, significant damage has been done with revenue loss in those cities. We really are kind of an agri-manufacturing area. We seem to be weathering it okay relative to them, but still significant revenue loss.
Yeah, I can imagine what the coastal cities are going through. You know, the cities are highly
brutal.
dependent on tourism.
It's really proud.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add on to that.
Absolutely.
And this is also just for our new counselors. It's a part of our responsibility as well as communicating, like we've talked about with our legislators and their staff. Unfortunately, the previous administration would shoot down revenue replacement time after time again because they thought that it wasn't a good use of funds. Maybe that cities and states have misallocated the way that they spend, and so they didn't want to help in revenue replacement. So I'm hoping with this new administration, we can have a little bit more of a chance for revenue replacement for our cities. So I think that's something us as elected leaders can do, and as a council, we can definitely do, to stay in touch with our elected leaders as well.
Any other questions from the council for Mr. Kay? So he can sit in. No?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kay. We need to approve, don't we normally approve that? Yes. Any public comment on the December 2020 financial report? Are there, can I get a motion to accept the financial report presented by the financial director?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Primer, seconded by Councilor Duran to approve the December 2020 financial report. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. I see Larry preparing a presentation. Is that for later? I don't see that listed on here.
Yeah, I've asked him to prepare something under my
Under
manager's
manager.
report,
Okay,
so.
okay. I want to make sure I don't miss something. The committee, city committee and liaison reports. Anybody would like to speak to that?
Sure. So I attended, I think.
I can't hear you, yeah.
It's on, but my mic is on.
Okay. Can you guys hear Maria okay?
Hello?
There, that was better.
Okay. Bring it down.
So I went to my first
PAC meeting, the Hispanic Advisory
It's good now.
The Hispanic Advisory Committee meeting on
January 19th, and there wasn't a whole lot of members there, but we had a good discussion. Mr. Federer was there and provided an update on the price and Rex and the Funland project, and I was pretty excited to see, you know, how it's coming, how it's evolving, and I said to him, and I'll say it again, you know, I'm really excited for what's coming, how it's going to turn out, and I really am pleased with the work that Mr. Federer has done to get the project, you know, and getting community input. So I'm sure maybe you guys he will be covering that meeting tonight, but certainly I think his enthusiasm has had a lot to do in the connections that he's made with community members, that he's been able to, you know, get the project off and running, and so we were pleased to see that day. The other thing that they determined there was that Jose Garcia continues to be the chairman who was selected once again. Mr. Gromolski will be the vice chair, and they provided some information about, you know, the work that they have done as far as making sure that a lot of the farm workers were getting a lot of their, you know, personal protective equipment like hand sanitizer, masks, and to their surprise, you know, a lot of the farmers weren't so friendly, unfortunately. You know, some of them, I think, were even, at one location at least, they were asked to leave the premises, but the main guy had given authorization for them to be there. So But it was nice to see the amount of work that Jose and Mr. Gromowski have been doing, because they've been making the rounds to a lot of the employees, you know, that have been considered essential workers, and yet they weren't getting a lot of the information of COVID and you know, the seriousness of that. So I appreciate the work that Jose and Mr. Gromowski have done. And I think that's pretty much it. That's
Okay.
my report. Thank you.
So, Roy, were you at that meeting as well? Did you have anything to add?
I was not present.
You were not present, okay, thank you. Any other, by the way, I did do a new committee assignments. Everybody okay with their assignments? I tried to at least hit your, you know, your high ones, your number one requests as much as possible. But I also was understanding of people that have been in position for a lot longer and may have some institutional knowledge that is important to maintain in those committees. So some of those people maybe stepped in line in front because of that. So I know that there was a lot of these committees are more popular than others. So I tried to assign you to most of them that you wanted to be on, but I wasn't able to get all of them that you wanted to be on. Any other committee reports? Yes, Mr. Harden?
Well, faith-based meets in February 9th is next meeting. It was supposed to be in January, but then it got moved up to February 9th.
Okay.
4 o'clock.
Others? Okay. Mayor's report. I just want to compliment the staff on the retreat we had this weekend. For the community, every year the City Council has made it a priority to sit down together and talk about the future of the community and the past. So we look back at, you know, some of our goals and priorities in previous year or years and see what kind of progress. It gives an opportunity for us to hear from the administration on the progress that we're making towards those goals and whether we've achieved them or there's still more work to be done. But also to, again, reflect on the needs of the community. And, you know, nobody a year ago would have thought we went through a pandemic, had social justice issues, you know, had changes, you know, that we've seen this year. And so, you know, each year gives us a time to reflect on what the previous year has brought us and what we can do to either amend our goals or change our goals or add to our goals. And so the council spends 10 hours of their personal time in the, you know, 2 days to sit down together in a facilitated conversation with the administration and communicate with each other on, you know, the things that we're doing well in the community and some of the things that we maybe need to work better at. And so I really appreciate the administration's hard work that they put into that. I know it takes a lot of their time and preparation to make sure that they have all their information ready to present to us, as well as our excellent facilitator for the 6th year in a row, Sarah Wilson.
Sarah Singer.
Singer Wilson, sorry, Mr. Previous name, I think it was, she's married, yeah. Sarah Singer Wilson. It's our 6th year facilitating conversation. I enjoy it. It's probably 2 of my favorite days of the year that I get to participate doing city politics and conversing with my counselor, the fellow counselors, and talking about the issues that are important, we feel like are important to our community and rise to the level of putting resources behind it. And so, great conversation. I'm inspired by the direction we're going. I look forward to the report from the administration, kind of summary of the weekend and adopting those new goals, because I'm really proud of what we did this weekend, and I think we did a lot of good work. So there's so much to do, but we can only check off a couple of the boxes. So I think you're going to come forward with top 7, top 8 goals.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's 7 or 8.
Okay, so look forward to that. Legislative session started this week, so they're off and running hard. I'm sitting on the LSC's legislative committee. We're meeting on a weekly basis at this point, talking about The LOC has priorities that it's trying to address as well. And as bills come in front of legislation or committee, we're discussing those and making sure that we're up to date with the information and giving maybe some guidance to the legislative lobbyists that the LOC has hired as how to proceed. So it's just, we're kind of a sounding board. I believe there's about 10 of us in this committee that they bounce ideas off of, and whether they need to maybe be more aggressive with action or lay back or let stuff go, or these are things that are more important to our state and our cities. Now is the time to also, we talked about this earlier, communicate with your legislators. Let them know what's important to your community. They want to hear from you. They're super busy right now, so getting them specifically is really tough, but their legislative assistants are usually pretty reachable, either by email or phone. And so communicating with them on legislative bills that are maybe coming in front of the House or the Senate that are important to you or your community, making sure that you're communicating with them right now is important. They too want to hear from you and their constituents. And then the other thing I was going to say, I was invited to participate in a letter. I'll pass this around to you guys, to the governor by Mayor Turner from Pendleton. And it was signed on to by Commissioner Murdoch, Milton Freewater Mayor Lewis Keys, Mayor John Turner, myself, Senator Bill Hansel, and Representative Bob Beatty. This was a letter to the governor expressing our concern for limited in-person dining. Our restaurant industry has just been devastated. The information that's provided in here is factual and information that we feel supports the desire or the need to support our small businesses and reopen the restaurants to at least some limited in-person dining. So I signed on with that with the rest of my local leaders, and we sent this letter today to the governor in support of our restaurant industry. You know, they've been shut down for 8 to 12 weeks now. Our case rate has continued to climb, even though those restaurants have been closed, and so they aren't the sole cause and shouldn't be held accountable for all of the infection rate that we're having in our county right now. And so we're just asking them to have a little bit more relaxation on the rules and allow the restaurant industry to open up to a small degree for limited in-person dining. So I want to make you guys aware of that, and we just sent it to the governor today. All right, I got nothing else, I think.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, I do have something else. Wait, one more thing. We kicked off the 2040 Hermiston Visioning last Tuesday. Thursday. Last week was just a blur. Yeah. Yes, it was Thursday because Sarah Singer Wilson also facilitated that. And the 2040 Visioning was a goal that was put together by the council last year through the retreat process. And it's to invite a diverse group of community members to participate in a conversation about what the city should look like over the course or the direction of the goals of the city for the next 20 years. I believe there's 15 people, something like that, doesn't need to be exact. You have two council representatives that are on there. I spoke for you at that meeting, not intentionally, but I suggested that you were there to represent yourselves and anybody that you stand for, but not necessarily the council. And so you're there to participate, be a liaison back to the council about how that visioning process is going, and any questions that they had of the city, Mr. Smith would answer. And so not necessarily there to speak for the council or be a counselor, but represent the council, or represent the message back to the council on the progress. That is an event that will be going over the course of the next 9 months-ish. We're reaching out to the community. I think the biggest part of that I took home was trying to connect with a broader base. So, the conversation about you told 5 friends, and they told 5 friends, to try and increase that base of participation so that we can get broader feedback into the conversation about what's important to the community, so that can help direct us on our goals for the next 20 years. So looking forward to that conversation as it moves forward, but that kicked off last week. Okay, I got nothing else. Mr. On, you were first.
Yes. So I wondered whether it would be appropriate for you to take back to the League of Small Cities. Another concern that I have is, maybe that could be brought to the legislature's attention, would be to keep fighting for rural broadband accessibility for our parents. The connection for some folks that live out in the country is very not stable. So I think that's so important right now because we don't know how long this, the distance learning will continue. So that, and I guess affordability of that would be an issue as well. So if that could be added on there too. And then a question that I have, Mr. Mayor, whether it would be worth adding to the letter or not, which thank you for coming up with the letter. But the question that I have is, at the last meeting, we had a lot of folks that were here to voice their concerns. And they asked, why is it that the prison is, part of our numbering system when it comes to the cases, and if that could be removed so that the businesses in Hermiston could be, would be able to reopen again. So is that something that you would know how to answer, or is that something that could be included in the letter?
So the letter's already gone, so no, it can't be included. The county tracks the prison numbers separate from outside the prison numbers. And so I know the state is aware of that, and they said we shouldn't be penalized because of those things. But it does get, like if you read the numbers the OHA puts out on a weekly basis or a daily basis, they are reported in total as Umatilla County. But as far as our opening, I don't think it goes against us. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, that's the last I've been told through the county, is that the state has assured them that when those metrics are looked at, that they are subtracting out the numbers of the prisons. Now, I can't verify that, but that's what the county has been told, and
Right.
That's what the county has shared with me.
And that's something that we've advocated long ago, going back into the summer, that those numbers were included unfairly in our population. The other comment that you made about broadband infrastructure. So the League of Cities goes through a question with its cities every year in anticipation of legislation season happening, and it comes up with a priority list. And you'll get to participate that as a fellow councilor in the future and vote on what you think is the most important issue. They'll give you a list of 15 or 20 issues, and you'll say, yes, I support this, and we'll come up with Hermiston's recommendation to the LOC. One of those this year is part of their comprehensive infrastructure package is broadband infrastructure. So it's on the forefront. The League of Cities has been very much supportive, especially after this year. Rural broadband is lacking, and we need better broadband service. So we will continue to advocate for that as well. Anything else, Mr. Rowe?
No, I guess, thank you for being patient. I know for some of you that have been here a long time, probably already know this, but are the newbies, or maybe I'm just the only one, I guess I should not generalize and include the others, but, it's a learning curve, so thank you for sharing.
Keep asking the questions. I appreciate the questions, and that's how we all get better and know more. So I appreciate the questions. You shouldn't feel bad about it. Keep asking. How about other councilors? Yes, Mr. Harder?
Well, just a kind of a recommendation, especially for our new ones, is that weekly report that comes from LLC at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you can be there live and be a part of it and ask questions too. So there might be a possibility to get, whether it's from the health department or whether it's the governor's office or emergency management, and then of course our own representative that works with LLC, with the state legislators. And so, and plus the federal people are on there all the time too, for a time. So it's, if nothing else, if you can't get it when it's live, at least it's available on the website for the next week. So that's one way I've kind of tried to keep up with what's happening in all these different areas. And it's really been informative, and I would highly recommend it.
Very good point. orcities.org is the League of Oregon Cities website. It's a great resource for information about cities and their advocacy, their engagement, not only legislatively, but what they do for cities and some of the resources that are available to cities through your League of Oregon Cities. They are there to help make cities better and stronger. And so, go to that website, and there's lots of resources on there. And as Councilor Hardin talked about, every Friday, 10 o'clock for the last, well, since COVID happened, they've been doing a weekly update. And it's kind of where we're at as a state. Governor's office is on there, OHA is on there, OEM is on there, Operations and Emergency Management. Sometimes the NLC, usually the NLC, National League of Cities is on there. And then our legislative directors, especially right now, are on there talking about legislation. And then once in a while, like Councilor Hart said, we'll get a guest appearance from either a federal or a state legislator on there. So it's a facilitated conversation. It's open. You can either email or text in questions, or they do a live question and answer as well, so you can participate that way. So looking at the agenda, they send it out every week. If you're not on their weekly email list, you might add your name to that so that you get that email, and you can listen in, and they'll take your questions right there live. So it is a really good way to communicate with your fellow councilors and mayors across the state.
Can you please repeat the website?
orcities.org. Yep. Councilor Hardin, do you have anything else? Any other? Mr. Brooke?
Just 2 things today. We're talking about committees earlier, so I just kind of wanted to highlight that we still have a couple of vacancies on a few committees, namely EOTech. We have 2 positions open for that. Again, that's something that the city is taking care of, and for the future planning of EOTech for the next 5-10 years, being a part of that committee, you have a say, you have an opinion on how EOTech ends up looking like for the future of our community. So encourage applicants to apply there. We also have Parks and Rec Committee, as well as Hispanic Advisory Committee and the Budget Committee. So if there are any citizens out there, it's a tough job, but at the same time, you get your voice heard, you get your opinion heard, and honestly, in these committees is where a lot of the work starts. So I encourage people to apply to that. And also kind of going along, I guess just with new counselors, not only do we have obviously the responsibility of being here for council, but it's really up to you guys how far you want to take it. Obviously, you can participate in League of Oregon Cities, but oftentimes there's a lot of trainings, conferences. From there, we can advocate, like we talked about, with local legislators, and sometimes you have the opportunity to be on committees where your voice can get heard on the state level or on the federal level as well. And so it's honestly, it's a big web that ends up starting to come together the more and more years that you're in it. So I'd highly encourage everyone to participate in the League of Oregon Cities. A lot of committees there, as well as the new People of Color Caucus that was established. So I extend that invitation out to everybody, if anybody would be interested in the People of Color Caucus here on council. But other than that, there is also City Day at the Capitol this coming Thursday, I believe. It's going to be from 1 to 6, and it's free. So as councilors, we can sign up for that. I believe the governor is going to be on the call, as well as other state leaders and representatives. And so anything from COVID questions, anything for recovery, anything from, you name it. It can be anything from housing, homelessness, mental health. All of that is being talked about. And the great thing as us as counselors is, as elected leaders from this area, we do have a voice, and it is strong. So being able to voice your concerns, and to Mayor's point, it's clear that our administration always communicates with the state and the federal level, but to hear it from an elected official is also very different. So that is where we have power, when we can advocate for our citizens on the next level. So it really is how far we want to go with that, and how far you want to go personally, but there's definitely a lot of committees and a lot of things to do on the state and the national level.
Thank you, Councilor Groen. Very good points. League of Cities has entry points for anything that you have special interest in to be engaged with. They have lots and lots of committees to be a part of. I'm not sure I was too involved in that first month or two of council action, but you know, get your feet wet, and it's a good way to kind of learn more about the priorities across your state and get to know your fellow councilors and cities a little bit better. City Day is one of my favorite days of the year as well. It's a little different this year. Unfortunately, you know, we have to do it virtually, but it's always fun to go to the Capitol, see other communities also there advocating for their communities. We make special meetings with our state representative and senators, and it's nice just to sit down, and they always make time for us. And so in the future, I hope we'll be able to go back in person and sit down and talk to them in person, but put that on your calendar for next year. City Day is always a good one. Councilors, anything else? Okay, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I just have a couple of items. I'd like just to echo the Mayor's comments about the goal setting as well as the vision committee. Both of those processes are going to are valuable and will provide great value to the community. I wanted to just give a little bit of an update. I'm hoping, right now the plan is that we would move into the basement of City Hall, or to the basement of the library, and make it temporary City Hall February 19th. And so, like right now, tentatively looking to schedule maybe a work session walkthrough on the meeting on the 22nd of February. So potentially meeting there and walking through, and then coming down here for the regular meeting. Something like that. If the contractor has any changes or anything that could move still, that's what we'll work towards as a staff at this point. So, and that is all that I have.
So February 10th.
February 22nd is part of the work session time.
Right, that's what we're looking at.
We would go to the library.
Correct.
Okay?
And I asked...
6 o'clock, we'll meet there at 6 o'clock?
Yes. So then I asked Mr. Fetter to give us a quick update for the community on some of the parks projects. Like you mentioned, Funland hasn't maybe been talked about, so kind of like to get that. So I like that, have him give us a few minutes of presentation.
Excellent. Welcome, Mr. Fetter.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me. What I have for you, I want to share some slides and then a couple of very short videos. I think it's really nice to have some things to look forward to this year, so hopefully that's what we have to share with you. Thank you very much for adopting the Park and Recreation Outdoor Space Plan in July. That sets the development stage for parks and recreation trails over the next 10 to 20 years. So that document is so popular that I have to get more printed, and then I'll make them available to anyone who wants one. But you can download it online as well, so that's handy. So that's something to celebrate. This is it's a big accomplishment for our city, and especially for Parks and Recreation. So highlighted in that plan, and we've made significant progress on our dog park. If you haven't been there, I'm getting feedback now. We're letting the public use it. It's located behind the spray pad at Butte Park. You can see the green area is the big dog area, and the blue area is the little dog area. In real life, they're all green, but for the purpose of sharing with you, it's open to the public, but it is not currently finished. We're actually going to dedicate it in late March when the rest of the furniture, the dog mitts, the signs, all the finishings will be installed. So we'll share with you that dedication date, and it will be officially open to the public. Nothing wrong with using it right now. It's just that it's kind of self-managing, and we're happy that people are using it. So you can see right here, here's a group of dogs enjoying the new dog park. Riverfront Park. You may recall that we've had a couple of significant floods. The last one that we had was so significant that this is a picture of our parking lot, which became a gigantic jigsaw puzzle. And we have been restoring it since then. But I wanted to share with you and remind you what our plans are for Riverfront Park. I'm going to point out a couple of things. Of course, this is the Umatilla River. And the old parking lot was situated at the north end of the park. And what we know is that that's exactly where the water wants to flow. And the flooding event that we had in this last spring was so significant, it just really devastated the trail, the parking, the fencing, all of that. In fact, so much so that FEMA stepped in and said, we will help you restore your park. And then we would be open to the idea of mitigating with you, relocating some of those improvements so that in the future, when the water wants to flood, it won't be as devastating to them. So for example, the parking lot will be relocated further to the south, more central to the park. The playground, and I'll show you what that's going to look like, will be near that as well. And in the future, we plan to have a gazebo. And then the restroom, which is currently up here next to the old parking lot, needs to stay there for a while until we can get a sewer connection possibility down here in the south. We'd like to relocate that as well. So this area does get water, but it doesn't get the turbulent water that is so devastating. So that's a major significant improvement, and we've made a lot of progress. In fact, we've purchased this new playground, which is a major upgrade over the former playground, and it's a ranger station. What's nice about this in this park is that elevation, you'll be able to see down the river a long way. So I'm looking forward to this, and I'm trying not to distract my workers who are working on Funland, but this will be the next project that we take on, probably in early summer after we get Funland finished. So, some program and events updates for you, and I have Brandon and Cassie here that can help me if you have specific questions. But part of the challenge for Parks and Recreation for us is nothing's the same. We have, as you've noticed, we've experienced a very flat program participation level, and part of it is the stay-at-home orders and then dealing with programs. We've discovered that you can kind of make some things work outdoors reasonably well, but moving a program indoors is very challenging, very difficult. So some things that we've done, this is just a very small list of what we've attempted to retool in this era. So we've done a program called Our Town Christmas over the holidays. And that was a shop at home program where people could turn in their receipts and get rewarded for shopping in Hermiston. There is currently a new program that's going to be launched in a couple of weeks. It's the Mayor's Shop and Dine Local Challenge. Perhaps you've heard about it, Mayor. And we're challenging our neighbors, Pendleton, LeGrand, and whoever else will participate. And the goal is similar: shop at home, save your receipts, or scan a QR code. We will track them and keep track of those local purchases, dining, shopping. And at the end of the challenge period, the community with the highest receipt totals will get recognized. And individually, you then are entered into a drawing for a variety of different prizes. We've got a lot of bowling and dining, I think, gifts to make available for people. Other things that we've done, you may recognize this Santa. We did have our tree lighting festival, virtually, and it's a very big challenge to do. You know, we're used to maybe a couple thousand people showing up for our tree lighting festival, and this year we had over 1,000 people watch it from home. We could track that. Very few people downtown, which was the right thing to do. So we were able to have as much of that festival as possible, and hopefully that did bring people downtown. And we feel like that's something we can contribute to with Parks and Recreation, is helping get people downtown, buying at home, encouraging and rewarding that behavior. So those are some things that we've tried. We've tried other things. It's a moving target for Parks and Recreation. One of the things that we are doing right now, it's a pilot program called Distance Learning Day Camp. So all day long, we have a small group of children here in this building where we're helping them with the school's adoptive distance learning program. We're working in small groups with our own camp counselors, with all the appropriate restrictions in place, all the monitoring, et cetera, to give them as close to an in-class experience as they might have gotten otherwise. And it's definitely improved their learning capability with us coaching them. And we also give them a normal Parks and Recreation experience where we're able to have some game. You don't have to walk very far to see darts all over the place and the craziness that you would see in a rec room. So if you want to see a little bit of that, peek around the corner, you'll get a flavor of the ping pong balls. It's really, really nice to have young people back in this building, let me tell you. It really picks up my day. So we are hoping to expand that program, augment what the school district is doing. Clearly, it does not replace a school environment. We're hopeful, very hopeful, that this is a very temporary program for us. We're also hopeful that we can resume our summer programming, whether we have a pool program or not. We know that we can do successfully camp programming outdoors, so we may be offering more outdoor camps than we might normally, and just targeting as large a group as possible, especially if we can't run a pool program. Okay, now I want to give you an update on Funland. This is not the update, this is an old picture of the last bird. So I'll be sharing a video on that, and then also I'll be sharing a video on the Teen Adventure Park, especially for the new counselors. This may be new to you, and you'll get a flavor of what this new park is. It's been in the works for quite a while, but the centerpiece for it, as you can see in this illustration, is a skate park, which is how we started this project. But after spending time with the teenagers over at the high school, which Brandon and I did a lot of times, they said, well, yeah, skateboarding, but we really want this, and we really want that, and what about one of these? And so it evolved into kind of this adventure, outdoor programming, parkour, and climbing rock, and also a pump track. And this location, if you're not familiar, is directly across the street from the public safety building, police and fire. And in the video, I think you'll be able to make that out. So we'll start with Funland. So we're about a third done with Funland. It's an amazing project. It's even with if we stopped today, it would be an incredible playground, but we're only about a third into it. So we are on target for a dedication Memorial Day weekend. So there are a few things that could interfere with that, but we're hopeful that we're able to keep that schedule. The restroom concession is going to show up in early March. So there's some key things that we need to hit in order to hit that schedule. So now I'm going to share with you the similar video for the Teen Adventure Park. And by the way, that first video was done by Miranda, and he is very talented with everything audio-visual. So I really appreciate that. This is an early concept. Some of the details have changed. And the reason I'm bringing this back to you now is that we have applied for 2 state grants. We've been awarded with one. We'll be presenting another one actually in about a week and a half. So combined, it's over $500,000 between those 2 grants. And if we get that second one, we'll be able to go into construction this next year. Again, something to look forward to. So wanted to share this with you. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Council, questions?
I'm just grateful for your report. I'm excited about the other city part, which I had no idea, but I'm excited to see it come to Hermiston. The other thing that I want to applaud you on, I really like how you're always putting things on Facebook. Thank you, Brandon, for doing that. I wonder, I know one of your goals is to be more inclusive and try to get the Hispanic community involved. I wonder if you would consider having your posts also done in Spanish as well as you're posting them in English.